now. There we go. And so just for quality purposes, you probably want to mute so that you can minimize any background noise. However, please feel free to unmute yourself or jump in with any questions as we're going. So that being said, let's go ahead and begin with, here is Caseload Manager. So your very quick introduction is, it's a system in the cloud. You guys all know this by now. And it's designed to help you manage your entire practice, including your staff, your calendar, your cases, all of your contact stuff. And it allows multiple people to log in at the same time and have access to real-time data. Okay. So here's the training outline. We're going to be going over the introduction today, is getting started and staff setup. Your wonderful super users have been working very hard, and they've done most of the configuration for you. There's going to be little tweaks and changes as everybody gets in and begins using the system. And then what's nice is you can continue configuring it as time goes on. So, and optimization and advanced features, you can add those as you need. So those are all add-ons that you can be using as you need to. So some groups will be using work groups, some will be using deadlines, so you can just add on what you need. Okay, so ta-da, introduction to Caseload Manager. Logging in. So you will be sent a login email. Notice that this login is a unique New York login. So this is different than the logins that you'll see on the general welcome site. So when you guys get this login information, make sure that you bookmark it or save it somewhere. Your user ID and password will be sent to you in an email if you haven't received those already. Your user ID is going to be your email address, so that should be fairly easy for you to remember. Your password is something that was randomly generated. Now, I'm going to show you in a moment how to change that password so that it's something easier for you to remember. Okay. Now, when you log in with that information, you'll be on the Caseload Manager home screen. Okay. It's arranged in 5 hubs. Ta-da! 5 hubs here. Calendar, activities, reports, and mail, with cases down at the bottom. All right. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and get started. So we will work on adding a case from the Cases hub. Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to hop out to your screen. Okay, so here we are. We are at a live version. This is your Caseload Manager. So again, we have calendar, activities, reports, and mail at the top. Down at the bottom here, we have all of these cases, okay? So this is the Cases hub. I mentioned that as soon as you logged in, I would show you how to edit your password. So we'll do that by going to Edit and then Staff. And what I'm going to do is quickly add a volunteer. So I'll use this volunteer to show you how you can update your information. Okay. So I hit volunteer. We will add a new volunteer. We'll call her Velma. Velma, our volunteer. Very important that you have your initials in there. Okay, so when you log in and you're looking at your personal information, make sure your initials are there. Email address, password, at least 6 characters. You want this to be fairly strong because remember, you have got some pretty important confidential personal participant information in there. So make sure that that password is strong, at least 6 characters, just letters and numbers, and keep it safe. Update it frequently. If you're accessing this on a laptop, make sure that you password protect that laptop or iPad or tablet or whatever you're looking at. Okay, thank you. Coming down here, this is where you will update your email and your phone and your address as you need to. Here are any notes that you can make about yourself. Okay, you said that you can't hear. Can you hear now? Can you hear me now? Hello, hello? All right, I guess it doesn't really make sense to ask someone if you can hear me anymore.
I'll just reply maybe with the contact information. Is that okay, Claire?
Perfect. Okay. All right, so thank you. Dan is taking care of that. Here are confidential notes that are just for that only the all access staff can see. Things like okay. Again, address information, then scrolling down here is where we have your demographic information, such as when the training was completed, where you are at in the apprenticeship phase, what certifications you've done, gender stuff, education stuff, languages and availability. Okay, so I don't want to go too fast because I want to make sure that they're able to hear this information as well. County availability, and finally your time availability. So we will go ahead and add that record. Okay, so again, to update your information, you'll go to edit and then staff. All right, so
just quickly checking, can CMS folks hear us? Just give us a thumbs up on the video. No, okay. I just texted or messaged the contact, so hopefully they saw that.
okay, should we just do a quick pause while they're dialing in?
I don't have a cell phone number for anyone there, so I can't text or double check if they saw the message. But I'd say let's keep going a little bit. We'll see what happens.
All right. So, so first we looked at how to edit your personal information, and now let's look at how to add a case. So to do that, I'm going to click on Add New Case. And first, I'm going to identify what type of a process it is. So I'll click on Mediation. And next, I'm going to select the case type. Now, I know you have a variety of cases. Great. Yes?
We're back.
Great. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're looking at now is how to add a case. All right, so we are in, I'll just show you how we got here. So from the home screen, you're going to click Add New Case. You see that? That's down in the Cases bar. So from here, we are now in the Add New Case screen. So this is just your initial intake screen. I'm going to go over some of the case information. We'll just start on the left and work our way down. So there we go. So one quick thing about case numbers. Caseload Manager is going to automatically be assigning a unique number for every case. So every time a new case is added, we will assign a unique number. Now, I think it makes sense for you to just use that number. If every now and then you have to add your own number, you'll do that here in the other section, such as a court docket number, case number, or something like that. You can add it here. Also, if for some reason you also need to add a case name, you can do that here, okay, in the case name section. And again, that's just to keep track of cases for your own office, but it's not necessary for your state reporting. Coming down, here's where we can identify the referral source, county, relationship, We have pending information fields that have been added to your system. They're not necessary for the state system. It's just for your own office. If you want to use them, they are here and available for you. Initiating party and responding party. So right now we're only seeing places to add these information for these two, but I want you to know that the system can grow with you. So spaces for more people will pop in as you need them. So you can handle hundreds of people in a multi-person facilitation if you need to. But the default is that on the intake screen, you're only seeing places for two, just so you know. Now, if it's somebody that you've worked with before, their information is going to be on file here. All right. If it's a new person, then we will add their information here. Okay. And we'll just add basic information at the moment, and we'll come back in a second and add demographic information. Now, let me just mention, there are a couple different ways that you can go about this. Some people want to add all the information in the beginning. Some people want to wait and add it all at the end. It's completely up to you, whatever your workflow, whatever each center chooses as their workflow. So just something to talk about amongst yourselves. You know, how do you guys want to go about adding cases? It's up to you. All right, coming down here, this is the staff section. I'm still on the left-hand side. I'm still in this little case, I'm sorry, I'm still in the contact section, but now I'm moving down to staff. So this is where we identify who added the case. So let's say Jeremy initially added the case, so I would consider him as the case developer, and then I'm going to add a mediator. Now, even if you don't give your mediators access to the system, I would still add them. Oh, I had to sneeze for a second there. Okay, it's gone. Excuse me. I'm slightly allergic to chocolate, but not enough that it doesn't stop me. So if you hear me sneezing, you know that I've snuck a piece in every now and then. All right, so when I add a mediator, then it means that I can now email them from this case, okay? So if I want to email Velma, my volunteer, then I can add her to this case, and then she'll begin to get credit for this case. I can add her to calendar items. I can send her notifications of time changes and all that good stuff from this case, even if I don't give her access. And then it will also keep track of her time, so that at the end of the year, I can say, hey, Velma, you volunteered for 100 hours for us this year. Thank you so much, and here's your gift card, okay? So it's, even if you don't give your mediators access, my point is, it's still very important to assign them to cases and to calendar items so that you can, so you're putting the correct data in at the beginning so that you have data at the end of the year when you need it. Okay, so here's how I'm going to assign case developers and mediators. Now I'm popping over to the right-hand side where I can add some more detailed information about this case, okay? So case notes, for small claims, I probably wouldn't be doing this, but I'm just going to show you where the fields are right now. All right, this is the divorce case. I don't know why I fell in love with her cat, okay? So whatever the important details are, you can add them here. Scrolling down to status, you can see that this field comes pre-populated with some options, okay? But you can really customize these and add them for your own office. So if there are additional things you need to track, like we're in the intake phase, or we have sent out an invoice, we're waiting on the evaluation, whatever it is, you can add those different options here in your status, in the status menu, okay? Waiting for, now this is another option. You guys might choose to use this as your next action item. You might choose to use your calendars instead. Lots of options for you. That's kind of the best part, but also the most confusing part about Caseload Manager is that there are so many different ways to go about things. So it's a very flexible system, and you just really need to figure out the best way for you. Anyway, a lot of people choose to use waiting for as their next action item. So something like, verify that husband wants to go forward with mediation. Okay. All right. So now scrolling down here, this is where you can indicate all the good stuff about the type of case. So you'll notice that small claim type and mediation process came through from that initial screen where I first opened the case up. All right. Dan, do you want to take over and explain some of the changes here?
I will, thanks. I just want to quickly check in with Casey before we go too much further. Casey, do you want us to switch over on a different system? You can chat it or email it to me. I know we had just exchanged an email about that. Let me know if you do. So just as I go through this here, want to share some changes to case types, some of which I think will affect each of you, but in different ways. So go ahead and click on the types menu, Claire, and just so folks know, one thing that's gone now is the ag credit, ag non-credit, and this is going to be big for Accord, probably not at all for CMS, but that change is what we'd like you to do is enter cases as you normally would. Like if it's a small claims matter, enter it as small claims matter, choose the right nature and everything. But then if you look down a few fields, there's the NISAMP field. And this NISAMP field is where you will indicate whether it's a credit or a non-credit case. So that's the only way we'll know it's a NISAMP case. So especially for Accord, just make sure that you get used to choosing credit or non-credit here. The other change is, and I can talk through some of this without the screen up. I'm wondering, Claire, if you could switch over to CMS's database. Accord has some cases that are pretty sensitive that they don't want to display on the case list, and they're a little nervous about that. So could you log into another database?
Yes. I'm not quite sure
Okay.
what CMS is. Let me see if I can pull up. Do you know what the...
Yeah, sorry folks, thanks for bearing with us here. So CMS is actually Queens Mediation Network. It's 33218. Okay, thanks everyone. So the other change in types is peer mediation. Peer mediation, I think in Queens you do some of those cases. Those will no longer be listed as a case type. Peer mediation is now a process. So the case type will be youth, and then you would choose peer mediation from the process codes. We just wanted to clean that up and make that kind of distinguish the difference between a peer mediation is different than a regular mediation. So, and the only other change is if you had done something called DSS conciliations, and I know that that had been part of Accord's caseload, and I'm sorry, I don't know whether it was part of CMS. We've now changed to a case type called public benefits, and then we have different options under process, such as fair hearing, if what you're doing is a fair hearing, or we have conciliation, if what you're doing is a conciliation. So that those are some of the changes on the case type side. You'll notice under process that there are also some changes. There are basically some new options, and we're really happy to add these two here. So we have the settlement conference, restorative practices. I mentioned peer mediation. We have conflict coaching, fair hearing. So we have more options on the process side, which I think is really a positive change. And certain ones have disappeared. I think family group conference used to be on here, for instance, and we've kind of done away with that because it hasn't really been used. These new processes will be defined in a forthcoming chapter of the program manual. But I just wanted to let you know that those choices were out there. And Casey is asking, what should community be input as? So those of you who have experience with the CMS know that the case type menu is largely framed in relation to what the court of jurisdiction might be, and then there's some deviations from that. So you'll kind of have to make a guess. If it's literally like a barking dog, neighbor type of dispute, then, and if it involves city ordinance like a noise complaint or something, well, then you might choose misdemeanor ordinance as your case type. We try and not use other very often, but that's always something that you can use. But you notice right under civil small claims, it says if other, what type? So if you do choose case type other, we're asking folks to complete kind of just a little sentence or two about, not sentence or two, a few words about what it might be. That'll help tip us off if we need new case types, or can help direct you to a better case type. So Casey, just let me know if I handled that question okay. And if you have a specific caseload that happens pretty commonly that you categorize as community and you want to know what case type to use, just let me know. The last thing I just want to point out here, we talked about types, we talked about nature, outcome process, we talked about NISAMP. So the last one I want to say, there's a new field called secondary nature. It is not required. Secondary nature is a list of all the natures pretty much. And what we would like folks to do with this, and again, it's optional, is that it's an opportunity to add a little more texture about a case. And so there's sometimes where just one nature doesn't capture the whole range of what folks are talking about. So for instance, if you're doing a family case and it's a parenting issues and people, you have to choose one nature. And so maybe you've chosen visitation original, but you also know that they want to talk about custody, or they also want to talk about child support. Well, in the past, DRCMS said you have to choose only one. And I guess now we're saying modest improvement, you can choose two to add a little more. It might be helpful for local tracking to kind of get a better sense. The other type of situation where this might be useful is when you have two people who see the conflict in really pretty different ways. So maybe it's a landlord-tenant case that you're seeing in small claims court. One person, the landlord says, hey, this is about non-payment of rent, and I'd like to proceed with an eviction. And the tenant might say, no, this case is really about harassment. This guy keeps knocking on my door late at night and calling me at work. And so that's a situation where two people see the situation very differently, and you might want to find a way to capture that. So those are two ways that field can be useful. Again, it's not required. And then finally, for those folks in Queens, the New York City Criminal Code, no more three-letter codes hiding somewhere in the database. You have this whole menu here that you can choose from. And folks at Accord, just ignore this field. I think that's it, Claire.
Okay, so now scrolling down here, I want to make sure that I'm indicating the number of sessions and how long that session lasted. So I'm going to go ahead and add that case, okay? And so now I'm going to go back into it because I'm ready to close that case out, all right? So now I'm back in here, and I just want to point out that this screen has changed slightly. Okay, so you'll notice, let's see, let me point out a couple changes first. Over here on the right-hand side, this is where I can now add activity items to my case and add calendar items and upload documents, depending on what type of a case it is and how you choose to add those. But I just want to point out you can add those from here within the edit case screen. And then over here on the left, this is where I can add information about my my participants. So I'm going to quickly add in a participant here. Of course, you'll add in their address, their email, their phone number, all of that good stuff. Okay. Here's where I can make any notes I need to about that participant. Let's say very combative, use, I don't know, whatever kind of notes you think would be helpful about that participant. Scrolling down a little bit more, I can add in my basic demographic information. A quick note about birthdays. We just want to know, if I'm understanding correctly, you just want to know how old somebody is. So the actual month and date don't matter as much, but just put January 1 and then the date of birth. Okay? All right. So for demographic information, the default for all of these is did not ask. But the assumption is that you're trying to gather this information because it sounds like it's pretty important for your reporting purposes. All right. And note that there will be some times where it's declined to respond, and so there is an option for that as well. I'm going to add this record, and there we go. But now I want to go back into this person's record and just point something out. Okay, so I click on their name again, the record opens up, and now note that down at the bottom, there we go. Now it's showing me a list of all of the cases that this person is involved in. And I can just hyperlink between all of these cases. And this gets to become really nice if you want to just see what somebody's history has been like, what their relationship has been like with the center and all their different cases. Okay? All right. So I'm ready to close out this case. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, as we leave that party there, I just want to mention, it's super important to collect the demographic information on parties, and there have been times where we've emphasized that a bit more than others. But I think adopting this new system is probably as good a time as any to just really encourage you all to be asking those questions at intake or when you're providing mediation services on your exit survey or something. If you need assistance and would like to talk through how you can do that better, we're very happy to help. But it's just such a critical part of telling the story of who we're serving and for you to understand who you're serving so you know where the gaps might be. So just giving an additional plug for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now I'm ready to close out this case. So to do that, I'm going to come up here and click on Date Case Closed. And then in the upper left, I'm going to click on this toggle button, which changes it from open to closed. Okay, so now let's see if I can close this case. And it's saying, Claire, you forgot to fill out all these very important fields. All right, so I'm now going to quickly go through and make sure that I'm filling out all of the necessary fields for the New York reporting. Okay, so what's nice about this is it's keeping track of all of the fields that I have to fill out in order to close a case. Okay, I think I got them all. Great. Okay, so now that case is closed. All right, and we can now see it down here in my cases list. It's this case number 5. Now I want to point out that these green cases, okay, these light greenish gray cases, that means they're closed. The white cases are open. So let's filter those, because once a case is closed, we really don't need it to show up on your case display. So I'm going to come over here to my case filter. So we have Add New Case that we clicked on earlier. And now I'm clicking on Filter. Oops, that's a little low. There we go. So I'm going to change this display to only show me my open cases. I have a lot of other display options here, such as if I want to filter to So all of the cases that were open last quarter, or all the cases that were closed last year. Or if Mrs. Smith calls and I need to see the case that she's associated with. If you choose to use deadlines, here's where you can add the filter to see if there's anybody that's approaching an upcoming deadline that you need to contact. This is also where I can filter quickly, so I can see all of my cases within a certain county. I can see all of my NISAMP cases, okay? So you have a lot of options here for filtering, and then these additional fields. So there are some fields here that you've added specifically for your center, which is great. So you see that those are showing up right here in your filter, okay? So I set my filter, it's been updated, I hit close, everything refreshes, ta-da! So now my case list is only showing me my open cases. Again, if I ever have to get back and enter information about a closed case, or if it reopens, no problem. I'll just come back here to filter and change that display to show me my closed or all cases, okay? So we just looked at how to filter so that we're seeing the correct cases, but let's make sure that we're seeing the right fields for those cases. And by fields, I'm specifically talking about this home screen in the Cases Hub. So we have ID, case number, case name, etc. So I am going to change those fields by clicking on Select Fields. That's over here on the right. I click Select Fields, and then this new window pops open. And for some people, well, yeah. So I'm going to, the best way to say this is login dependent, meaning that every single person gets to set their own default select field, because everybody has a slightly different job, right? So for people that are working with parties a lot, then you probably want to have all these fields selected: party's phone, email, notes, etc., so that you can really, so that at a glance when you first log in, you can see all that party information and you can immediately contact them along with any notes. If your main job isn't really working with the parties, but just doing admin stuff for cases, then you probably care more about what's the status of a case, what's it waiting for, and let's say any notes on the case, okay? So you really get to decide for yourself what fields you want to work with. So I'm going to click Update and close. We'll give that a second to refresh. There we go. So now it's just showing me the fields that I care about for this case, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. And then from within here, I can use these little triangle buttons to sort those fields. This is not quite as impressive when you only have 2 cases, but let's say it's a year down the road and you have a couple hundred cases in here, then it becomes really important to sort these. So you can see what's your most recent case, or all of the cases within a specific county, for instance. So you can sort those really quickly with those triangles, okay? So we just looked at a couple different ways to customize your view. The first was filter, that customizes your cases. The second is select fields, that customizes what fields you're seeing within those cases. The final one is this display drop down at the top. If you're an admin, then you have access to see everything like we are seeing right now, all staff, all rooms, etc. So you can see everything that your volunteers have been up to, everything that's on your staff's calendar, how many cases your volunteers and your mediators are assigned to. You can see everything. You can also use this to look at your different rooms to see what rooms are available and what's booked. All right. So again, let me know if you have any questions about any of this. The next thing that I wanted to do.
Let me just quickly chime in if I can, Claire. So the cases section is my guess is probably where you're going to spend most of your time, and we're pretty excited about it because that could serve as your kind of individual to-do list. I think it's a great way to kind of I know each of you have kind of only 1 or 2 counties, but you still have specialty areas. You might have someone who's in charge of family court, and all they want to do is set up their view just to see the family court cases. or not. Maybe someone is out sick and you're going to cover for them on their cases. And the nice thing is that when you set up what fields you see in that case view, it doesn't impact anyone else's. So it's just tied into your login, and you can change it whenever you want without affecting other folks. So it's a really powerful way just to stay on top of your casework, and probably just kind of going to replace that next action report that some of you might use to kind of help organize your work on cases. So just wanted to share that with you. It's also going to be a really good tool for when, you know, Casey or Regina come to you and say, hey, I want to know how many cases we had referred from such and so judge or so and so referral source in the last 3 months. And you'll easily be able to use these filters within this section to do an ad hoc query to say, show me family court magistrate referrals, and not that you have them in here, but you'll be able to choose that and the date range, and boom, it'll just spit out for you in that case view the cases that met those criteria. You could then, of course, also export them into Excel and do some more monkeying around with it. But essentially, I think it gives you a much easier way to get data out of the system as opposed to running queries in the back end of DRCMS. So we think it's going to be a really useful tool. There'll also be a lot of reports that will be canned and put in the system, so in a touch of a button you can get other more detailed reports. But for a quick kind of ad hoc request of information, you know, this is that's an easy way to work with the system as well. So before we go on the next, I think we're going to talk about mediator panels and that sort of thing. Any questions or reactions to what you've seen so far? Maybe you're having trouble finding something that you're used to seeing in DRCMS, or anything on your mind at this point? Okay. Oh.
Oh, Dan?
Yeah.
Hi, Dan. It's Regina.
Hey,
Hello.
Regina.
Hi. I was just wondering what this then means for the reporting that you need. Is it kind of more automatic, or does it still require kind of like an affirmative reporting from each of the centers to sort of close up a particular week or month and get that to you, or do you have the ability to just pull the information automatically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the days of batch transfers are over. No more emails from me saying, hey, I couldn't find a batch. Can you look in your transfer folder? So all of that's done. As the information gets entered, it gets available to me. I don't see everything. Any like case notes, like that's a pretty sensitive field. I don't get to see that. I don't get to see party names and addresses. I get to see their zip code, for instance, and demographics. So I don't see any sensitive or identifying information about cases. That said, urging people not to fall too far behind in data entry, because I will consider the data live. And my benchmarks are usually quarterly, you know, such that, you know, at the end of the quarter, I'm going to be, you know, looking a week after and assuming the data is complete. If you ever fall behind on data entry, let me know. It's no big deal. But I want to make sure I'm pulling accurate reports.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Regina. Any other questions? All right, maybe more will come up. We'll let Claire kind of introduce us to how the mediators get stored here.
Okay, so we looked earlier at the edit section and then clicking on staff, and you can do that in order to update your staff record, all right? But now what we're going to do is look at using this for a volunteer panel. So, to do that, you're going to click filter, and then you can filter by staff type. So let's say that you had all of your volunteers in here. So then you would just click on volunteer to limit it by that staff type. You could also limit it by making sure they're active, Any staff that do not have open cases at the moment. Okay, so you've got a lot of different options for filtering your staff here. You can also look at whether or not they're in the co-mediation phase, demographic information, what languages they speak. So if you need someone that speaks Hindi and Mandarin, then this is the way to filter for them. What counties they're available to work in. All right, so then at the bottom, you just set your filter. So this would show you your filtered mediator list, which you're just going to have to imagine with me at the moment. So imagine that we've just filtered and we have our nice mediator list. The final thing we'll probably want to do is click on select fields, just like we did before in the cases center. I'm selecting what fields I want to view. All right. And what I really want to look at the moment is I'm going to add confidential staff notes and latest case. So it's just an easy way for me to know what's the latest case that they worked on. So I've added those, I click back, and we can see that the number of fields here has changed. There we go, make that a little bit bigger so we can see it all. Okay. So now I can easily look at my mediator panel. And again, just a quick and easy way to have access to all of my mediators and then to filter those if I need to see what mediators are meeting my needs and just some information about them, some case notes and latest case that they've worked on. All right. How are you feeling about this? Do you have any questions about this section? No, everybody good?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. All right. So now the final thing is, let's say you've logged in. You've gone to edit and staff and you've updated your personal information. Let's say that you have come down here to cases and you've added and you've closed a case. Let's say you've customized your screen so that you're getting the right data that you need to. But heaven forbid, let's say I didn't explain something very well or I forgot something, so you have a question, okay? So the first thing that you do when you have a question is you hop over here to the upper right-hand side, and do you see where it says help just underneath your name there? Okay, so what you're going to do is click on that help button, and it's going to take you out to the help center, all right? So note that there's a help topics list, and most of your questions you should be able to answer here, all right? Getting started, settings menu, etc. But if you have a unique New York question, then note that that can be answered down here in the bottom left, okay? So do you see this portal and it says New York? So if I click on that, it's going to take me to a page that we're fleshing out with questions that are specific for New York and your reporting needs. I'm going to be adding some more training videos here so that as you add new staff, you can just direct them to this page and they can look at their training videos to get started. There's also a questions spot here that is just for posting questions for New York. Okay, that's going to go directly to us. We'll know it's a New York question, and that's a great way for super users to immediately send us a note saying, hey, how does this work? Hey, we want to add such and such on, okay? So to get there, I went to help in the upper right, okay? And you know what, Dan, I'm just realizing I skipped over something. So I'm wondering.
I didn't know if it was you or if it was me.
Sorry. So, you know what? Sorry, guys. I'm going to rewind just for a moment. But bear with us. This is our very last one. So it's our first mistake. So going back to edit, I'm going to staff. And let's click on, here we go. So I'm going to click on Leslie's staff record. And Dan, I'll let you explain this.
Okay, great. So just like the case view was really awesome because it lets you kind of filter and find things, I think that neutrals or staff listing, and in the verbiage of this system, staff includes volunteers and paid staff. It doesn't really differentiate that way. It talks about people who act on cases, and so that listing will be really cool because you'll be able to say, okay, show me all my special ed mediators, and it'll just show you your special ed mediators, or show me all my lemon law arbitrators, and I'm also going to display when they last did a case, and that way I can make sure, you know, I keep people active who haven't had a case for a while. Or if you've got a complicated case, I want to know Tioga County mediators. I need a male mediator who's also a social worker for some reason. And as long as you enter that information into the database, you'll be able to do some of that cool panel management stuff through the system. So we noticed when we've looked through DRCMS in the past that maybe less than half of the centers really took advantage of the mediator module in DRCMS. And yet we still put that information in this system and are really asking folks to add more information about their mediators so that their profiles are more robust. And there's a lot of customizable fields here, but even just fields around, what language do they speak? What certifications do they have? When did they take their training and all that sort of stuff? What counties are they available? All that stuff can be stored here in this in their record. And so we're really, really encouraging folks to add more information about their mediators. It'll also let us at the state level say things like, hey, X percentage of our volunteers are of this age or of this sex or have this educational background. And it'll help us be able to make, really interesting statements about that sort of stuff. So I think that's something we really want to encourage. Next week is when you'll see your mediator information show up. Your super user will hear from me, and that'll be a time for them to do a little bit of a cleanup job in the system to make sure that all the import happened properly, there weren't any mistakes or hiccups along the way. And then if you use the system to its full capacity, Claire, if you scroll to the top, great. What you'll see is here on the right side of Leslie's record, you could see all of her case records will be there. So any case that she's mediated is in that associated cases. And so if you can imagine, you'll have mediators with lots of cases that they've handled. You'll be able to hot link into any one of those cases and take a look at what happened there. It'll also count, how many cases would she a case developer for versus an observer or a mediator. So it'll tally that up top. And you can also track continuing ed. So if you have an in-service training on agreement writing, you'll be able to create that training. You'll be able to click on the names of all the people that attended, and then you'll be able to save it in the system, and it'll be connected to their record here. So at a glance, you'll be able to see, oh yeah, Leslie's taken these trainings this year. Likewise, volunteer activities. If you have people who come in, answer phones, do data entry, or just help with outreach or a special event, you'll be able to track all that information in here as well if you wish. The more you track in this place, the better, because then you can run other reports. We'll have reports where you can show your whole panel at a glance and say, okay, it's November, 2 months to go, how many people still need continuing ed hours and to stay active, and you'll be able to see that, or who needs to make sure they get in a couple more cases before the end of the year. Likewise, you also have a report that's kind of like an annual mediator audit where you can show all their continuing ed and all their casework. It all gets tabulated. It's kind of like an end-of-year receipt or something like that, so that you can answer those requests when people say, so how many cases did I do this year? You'll be able to show them that information. So we're really excited about this. We know some of you will use it right off the get-go, but some of you might ease into it, and that's fine. But we're really kind of encouraging folks to utilize this unless you have some other kind of, volunteer tracking database. Great. So Claire covered the help topics as well. So now I guess it's time if there's any questions from you all, any reactions really, anything that you're seeing that you want to mention, any questions, something you can't find that you wish you could. What's on your minds right now after seeing this kind of quick overview?
Well, I mean, I think that it's pretty clear, but there's no sort of like installing of the caseload manager. It's just as soon as we get the password, then we can log on and get going. Yeah,
it's all web-based, Regina. So as long as your Wi-Fi or your network is up, you'll be able to go ahead and get online. Get online. It tends to work well. If you're using Explorer, we'd probably encourage you to find another browser, Chrome or Firefox, because it tends to work a little better in those. But other than that, yeah, no software to download. It should be maintenance free, and if they do maintenance, they'll let us know in advance about that.
And also that there are continual little updates. So things like making sure that this font works with the newest version of Microsoft Chrome. So that kind of stuff is happening just about daily, and you won't even know. It's just those continual updates are going on in the background. But you're right, if there's ever any major maintenance, if we're ever going to be down or if we're making a major shift, then we'll let you know. And typically the way that we do that is we just send an email out to all the super users and admins in advance. But again, those are pretty rare. So other than that, just every time you log in, notice that there have probably been little minute changes, making sure that it's compatible with all the recent browser additions.
And do you also, or I guess Dan, this is a question for you. Do you want to keep track of sort of a current list of users who have access to it, or is that for us to, or I guess the question is, if somebody has access to it, and maybe people come and go, or do the passwords update after a certain period of time, or what's the process for getting people logged in or discontinuing access to it?
So let me answer that in two parts. So one is that will be largely locally administered and will be the responsibility of someone on staff, probably your super user. I'd kind of limit access to being able to do that a little bit. And so essentially, if you have an intern, let's say, you can create a login for them. They use it, end of the semester, they leave and go on to something else. It's going to be imperative that you deactivate them, not delete them, but deactivate them. That way they can't log in and get into the system. So that kind of maintenance is going to be critical for every center to invite their users and to deactivate those that are no longer with the organization. At the training, we also...
Sorry. So, and the reason why that's so important is because if you were to delete them, then that deletes their entire history with your office. So all their activities, their phone calls, calendar, etc., that's all gone. But if you just
not their cases though, right?
Right. Not their cases, just their relationship, just what they have done. Yeah. But if you make them inactive, then all that history remains, but they can't log in anymore.
Yeah, and then they don't show up on your menus and that sort of stuff and clutter things up as well. So that's going to be important to maintain locally. There was a piece of that I was going to mention, I forgot. Oh yes, we were also strongly encouraging at the training that super users develop local center policies for password changing. So that maybe once every 3 months or something, or once a month, whatever makes sense, that you ask all staff to get in the system that day and change their password to something new. It's just, there's a lot of security features and a very strong security system built into this, but essentially your local information is controlled by you all locally. So that's one. On the mediator side, and I shared this information with all the super users, I think I copied all directors, we are still going to issue mediator registration IDs, and the process for that is basically emailing me a spreadsheet whenever you want that, and our hope is to turn those around a lot quicker than we've been doing that, because we have a lot easier way to do that now. So that's just another type of person in the system that's the one that we're going to control with a registration ID. Did that cover it for you,
Yes.
Regina?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions? Anything else from CMS or from Accord? All right, we're nearing the end of the day, so I really appreciate everyone making the time. I know it's a busy time of year with vacations and RFPs and all sorts of stuff out there, so thank you for making the time. I'm hopeful that as you're in the system, you'll discover new things and see the possibilities that we see with the system. And, you know, whether it's immediately or over time, really kind of build the system up and make it work for you. And I hope that this kind of, the spirit of discovery and newness outweighs the short-term frustration you might feel with entering cases, because it's a little different than what you're used to. So thanks so much, everyone. Know that we're here for you as you are embarking on this new database, and we're here to help you along the way to make it easy. So many thanks to everyone, and also many thanks to Claire, who's been, like I said, a superstar and doing all these webinars for all of us. She'll be there as an ongoing contact for super users as well. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you, and nice to meet everyone, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
All right, take care, goodbye.
Bye.
Okay.